Okay, yesterday we ended off with the sugya of Mafanei Nichtam, Mafanei Nechtam, and yesterday we ended off two L'shainis and Rabbi Yochanan. Does one have to say, if two shluchim bring a get, do they have to say Mafanei Nichtam, Mafanei Nechtam? According to one opinion, they don't, because it's like shchiach for two shluchim to bring a get. According to another opinion, they would have to say Mafanei Nichtam, Mafanei Nechtam. In fact, that's a machlokes between Rabbi Yehuda and the Chachamim. That's the way we ended off. So we're beginning on Tes Zayin Amid Beis, about 5-6 lines from the bottom. Okay, we got rid of him again. This Avi Rosenzweig makes his presence known. So now, it says, Rabba bar Rav Chana, Kalash. Rabba Rav Chana, he got sick. So Rabbi Yehuda and Rabba, they came to go ahead and visit him. And boy, mine, you know, it's amazing. When they're Mavaka Chayla, they don't say how you doing. They speak to him in learning. That's the biggest Bika Chayla you can give to an Adam Gadol. It's like to speak to him in learning. So boy, mine, Shnayim Sheviu, get me Medina Sayyam. Two people who are shluchim Sayyam. Sarach Shayama Sheviu. Do we have to say in front of us is written and in front of us was sign or ain't tzricha? So Amalahem, ain't tzrichim, you don't have to. Ma ilu yomru b'fanenu girsha. If they would have said in front of us what it was divorced. Mila mihimna, wouldn't they be believed? They would be believed. Adahachi asahu chavra, came this chavra. Rashi says parsoy. It was some type of Persian. Says Taisvis in the middle, the Chaverim Heim Uma Achas. It's a nation Shebobi Mei Rabbi Yochanan that came to in the names the days of Rabbi Yochanan. Shebola Bavel Hershia es har Parsoyim Shaya Bavel. They were Mashia. They made evil the Parsoyim who were in Bavel. The Skalkul Tfei Me'armoyim, they became worse than the Romans. So according to Rashi, it's the Persians. According to Taisvis, it's a nation that go ahead and entice the Persians to go ahead and be not nice to the Jews. So came along this Persian and shakla lisharga mikamayu, and again he turned out the lights. We had a sugya in Avodah Zarah that the Persians they had a Yom Edom, they had a type of holiday that the only place you could have lights is what the holiday of lights, not our holiday of lights. Only in their place could you have lights. Only in their place could you possibly have lights. So what did they do? He turned the lights off. So Amar Rachmana. So Amar said Rabba Barachana Rachmana HaKadosh Baruch Hu Oy Betulcha, either in your shade, Oy Betula de Bar Esav, or in the shade of Esav. Mashma that what? That Esav was a lot better than the Persians, says Rashi. Either hide us in your tzel, in your shadow, or put us in Gullus in the shadow of Bnei Esav. My son, or at least they mechabed us as opposed to the Persians. You mean to tell me that the Edom is better than the Persians? Tani Reb Chia, my dichsiv Elakim Haven Darka, because Baruch Hu understands your way. V'hu yada es mekayma. What does that mean? He knows they won't be able to go ahead and deal with the decrees of the Roman. Rashi says the shmad of the Romans, right? They would persecute us. So he took us to Bavel. Instead of to Rome, he took us to Bavel. So you see that the Armoim are terrible. There's more kasha. Before these Chavra came to Bavel, then it was better for us. But after this Chavra came to Bavel, according to Taisus, is very geschmack, and the Chavra, they went ahead and they cited up the Babylonians to be negative against us. Then it was worse. So that's the Persians. There's a very, very interesting medrash, guys. The medrash says the following: Medrash in Esther. Lama nikra shmei paras. Paras means prusa. It means shekiblu es malchus prusais. They makabel their malchus in pieces. One, it says echad bimei harada, the echad bimei hadrikin, And Hadrikian, according to Redal, was Bimei the Amaroyim, the Achalas, one that's going to be in the future. So in other words, the Persians, right, there is a Malchus of the Persians in the future. It's amazing that Iran, Bisman Azeh, is a player in world events. It was like, think about it, in our lifetime, so everyone's that's on the screen, with the exception of Yehuda Kerba, possibly, that you remember the Shah of Iran. Iran was a friend of Israel. It was a friend of Israel, right? And there was nothing. They were not a player in world events. Kiuzeh. I mean, it was a disruptive culture for sure, but it wasn't a player in world events. 1979, I think this guy Khomeini, he went ahead, he overthrew it, put in that regime, and since that time, for the last 45 years or so, right, it's been awful. It's been awful, and now people are busy with the Persians, with Paras. You wouldn't think anything at all. Yet everything is state and Gemara, everything is there. And we have a medrash over here. In fact, there's a Gemara in right in the beginning of Heshi's favorite Masechta, Avodah Zarah, that the Romans come and say, look, we did so much for the Jews, right? We built these bridges, and it's Tipshim, you did it for yourself. And the Persians are also going to say the same thing. And the Gemara concludes over there that the Malchus of Persia is going to be extended. It's going to go and be Mashach to be made Mashiach. So again, you have interesting how sometimes, we just skip over things, but the Gemara, everything, I'll state in Gemara about Persia. Anyway, the bottom line, right? Let's take this call for a second. Moshe, you the baby. I'm in the middle of Shia. Were you successful?
Hello?
Were you successful, Moshe?
No, she said it's not ready.
Okay. Could call Uma, because I'm in the middle of Shia, okay?
Yeah, okay.
Okay. Anyway, so that's the end of the little digression over here. But again, according to this, you don't have to say b'fanei nechtav b'fanei nechtam. The Gemara continues. Echad oimer b'fanei nechtav. One person says in front of me it was written. Ushnayim oimrim b'fanenu nechtam, and two say b'fanenu nechtam. It would be kosher. So again, one person on the ksiva, two on the chasima. Everyone agrees that it would be kosher. Let's see Taisvis. Echad oimer b'fanei nechtav u'beis oimer b'fanei nechtam kosher. L'Rava, who says you need kiyum shtaris, afilu lekid meir ala kasiva kasha. Even if you wouldn't have anything on the kasiva, it would be kasha. Even if you have nothing, guys. What's the reason one on the chasima doesn't work? Because maybe you go ahead and be machlif kiyum shtaris to alma. Yes. So what, guys? Look at me. Look at me. You have one on the kasiva, two on the chasima. Now, what are you worried about? That you made two on. Kiyum shtaris is with two, right? Kiyum shtaris is with two. There's nothing to worry. If it was 1 and 2, you got a problem. Because if you're going to machshir it over here, you may come to machshir b'shar shtaris, which are not getting. But now that you have 2, there's nothing to worry about. So says Tosfos, this din of ksiva is lav dafka. It's because of the first case where you said 2 on the ksiva and 1 on the chasima. You said over here 2 on the chasima and 1 on the ksiva. Because really, according to Rabbi, you don't need anything on the ksiva. Light Rabbi you would need because of the lishma. And you'd also have to need that one on the shmal, on the one on the ksiva should be what? Should be the aid, should be the shliach. So now you have 2 and 2. Okay, that's the pshat over here. So now, Amar Reb Abba, Amar Reb Yochanan, Leishanu, Elishaget Yotzim B'Tachas Yidei aid ksiva, the nasu kishnayim alzeh kishnayim alzeh. As I just told you, you have 1 on the ksiva. This is only according to Rabbi, guys. Right, guys, again, it's a kind of a seekum of the sugya. Watch, look at me very close. We should know this code by now, but again, it's worthy of really hearing. Light Rava, you really only care about what? About kiyum shtaris. That's all you care about. The reason why you have Adam on the ksiva is, and you have to say b'fanei nichtav. Again, this is going back to Daf Gimel, is because if you wouldn't say b'fanei nichtav, you may come to go ahead and say kiyum shtaris is with one person. But now, since I have a hecker, when I say b'fanei nichtav, I won't come to make. That was the basic Gemara, right? So good. So if you're going to have 1 on the ksiva and 2 on the chasima and 2 on the ksiva, you still have the same problem. Good. So now you have 2 over here. Now, light Rabbah, 2 over here doesn't help you. Two over here would help you because you need lishma besides what? Good. So now watch. If I have one, if it's not the shliach, it still doesn't help me. If it's the shliach, it's if it's two. So now, if you have one on the ksiva, two on the chasima, it's kosher. And when is it kosher? When that one on the chasima is the shliach who can say b'fanei nichtav, and the chachamim believe him is two. And now you have two. So that's what the Gemara says right now. Amar Rabbi, Loishanu Elisha get yotzim mitachas yad eid kesiva, that the shliach is the one is on the kesiva. Now you the nasu kishnayim alzeh. Now you have two on the kesiva, kishnayim alzeh, and in fact you have two on the chasima. It would work. Aval mitachas yedei eid chasima. If the shliach is only on the chasima, it'll be puzzle. It'll be puzzle. You have two people. That you don't have two people on the ksiva. And Alma, what can we infer from this Gemara? Sabar Shnayim she'aviu get me medinas hayom tzrichim sheyamru b'fanenu nichtav u'b'fanenu nechtam. Again, this works because you have two and two. If it would be two and one, but one of the shluchim, well, even two of the shluchim are on this, and you didn't have one over here. If the one over here is not a shliach, guys, you have nothing on the ksiva. It'll be puzzle. Why would it be puzzle? I have two over here, and the answer is since you're coming from from Dinas Hayom, even if you're two people, you would have to say b'fanei nichtam, b'fanei nechtam. Even if you're two, and you don't have a funny, since the two Eidim are over here, and the one here is a free agent, you don't have b'fanei nichtam. You're missing the b'fanei nichtam. That's the diak that you have. With this again, this goes into the guts of the Gemara of yesterday. If two people come, do they have to say it or not? Like this, the diak of Rabbi Yochanan, they would have to say it because you're saying that you need the one on the chasima has to be the shliach because that makes it two. And now it's you have a b'fanei nichtav on this and you have kiyam shtaris on this. So that would be the Gemara, the first lashon. Alma ksaba shnayim she'aviu get medinas hayom tzrichim sheyamru b'fanenu nichtav b'fanei nechtam. Amalei Ravasi elameyata. So that's the case of two on the chasima and one on the ksiva. What about the first case? El Mayata, Reisha Diktani, Shnayim Omru B'fanenu Nichtav. You got two on the ksiva. The Echad Omru B'fanei Nechtam, Pasal, Rabbi Yehuda Machshir, Vafilu get Yotzim Itachas Yidei Shneim, Hasli Rabbanon. And even if what? If the get, you'd have two people, would it be Pasal? Amalei in? It would be. Now, why? Because you don't have funny nichtav on the ksiva, on the chasima. You don't have a funny nichtav on the chasima. That's what it means. Let me see. Just you need two people on the ksiva, right, and on the chasima. And the shliach is not saying both. Again, if you only have one, it's not saying both. So it would be puzzle, right? So Zimnin Ashkei, another time, Rav Asi found Rav Ami, the Yosef Kamar, that filu get yotzim mitachis de edi chasima, and on the ksiva you don't have a shliach kosher. So again, the first lashon, since you don't have an aid on the ksiva, it's puzzle. In this, he said, as long as you have edis on the shliach on the chasima, it would be good. Al muksavar shnayim shaviu get medinas hayom ain't tzricha shiyam b'fanenu nichtav b'fanei nechtam. Again, if you only have on the chasima and you don't say on the ksiva anything, and you're telling me it's kosher, it must be why is it kosher? Because you don't need to say b'fanei nichtav b'fanei nechtam. So Amalei Rav Asi Elamiyat, if that's the case, Reisha Diktani shnayim oimrim b'fanenu nichtav. Two people say in front of me it was written. In front of me was signed. You have what? One says that. Rabbi Yehuda Machshir, you have to say, what's the reason the one on Pascal is dafka they ain't get yotzim mitachas deishneim. Dafka if they're both not shluchim. But get yotzim mitachas deishneim. Machshir Rabbanon. Amalei Ravami said in. So Fred the Gemara was zimnin le'amid le'hachi. You just told me before that two people who bring the get, right, would have to say b'fanei nechtam, and now you're telling me they don't. So Amalei, so he told him, Yaseid hu shaloi tamud. It's a yisoid that should not leave, meaning I changed my mind. meaning I changed my mind. And two people who bring a get do not have to say b'fanei nichtam u'b'fanei nechtam. That's what he's saying. So two people do not have to say b'fanei nechtam, and therefore what I changed my mind, and that's the din over here. That's the conclusion of the Gemara. Okay. So what's the Torah, the guys? If you have two people who bring a get and they're on the chasima, it would work. On the chasima, it would work. Why? Because you don't need b'fanei nechtam. All you need is edim on the chasima and it would work. Okay, the next sugya is the sugya of zman. One of the more difficult sugyas in Masechta Gitin, and one of the more famous sugyas in Masechta Gitin. Now we know that in Judaism, the day goes after the night. The night is considered the beginning of the next day. So we're going to see from the Mishnah that a get that is predated, if it was written before the actual, it was predated before it was given, for the ksiva, it wasn't, no, there was no zman in it, that the Gitin took place earlier, it's not going to be a good get. Nichtav bayoim v'nechtam bayoim. The ksiva was during the day, and the chasima was during the day. That's the way it's supposed to be. B'layla v'nechtam b'layla, that's the way it's supposed to be. B'layla v'nechtam b'yoim, night and signed by day, kasha, because again, the day goes after the night. However, b'yoim, if it was written during the day, v'nechtam b'layla and signed at night, then puzzle, the get would be puzzle. Rabbi Shimon Machshir, and Shimon would Machshir, Rabbi Shimon Omer, Kol Gitin shenichtavu b'yoim v'nechtam b'layla, any get, any shtar mamin, any shtar halva, any shtar matana that's written during the day and signed at night, psulin. What's mikitei nashim? With the exception of the kitei nashim. Okay, let's see Rashi for an explanation. Says Rashi, nichta b'yoim v'nechtam nechta b'layla v'nechta b'yoim. Hainu chayum, that's one day. Right? We begin the day the night before. The ink can get mukdem, and therefore it's not predated get. However, biyoim v'nechta b'layla, if it was written during the day and signed at night, then it's puzzle according to the Chachamim, was mukdam hu. It's a predated get. It's a predated get. Now, why are we worried about a predated get? The mashma me'ayu hu yuma, that from that day that it was written, igarsha, but it's not true. Since it was written during the day and it was signed at night, you're going to go after the chasima, when really the gerushin took place, what? It's mashma, the gerushin took place during the day, but really it took, in other words, if, let's say June 1st, you wrote the get, and then the chasima was on day number 2, you're going to think that what? It wasn't June 2nd, it was June 1st, but really it was June 2nd. So that's called a get mukdim, where the zman of the get took place before the chasimas of the Edom. And therefore, v'loy girsha ad lamachar, she wasn't divorced till the 2nd, not the 1st. But it's mashma, she was divorced from the 1st. What's the reason for the psul? So again, guys, the get mukdim, you're going to date the get. If you don't have a zman on the get, you're going to think that the gerushin took place on June 1st when it was written, when in fact the gerushin took place on June 2nd when it was signed. Okay. Now, kol Gitin shel mecha umatana v'alva psulin. The asi lemitrif lekuchos miyuma deksiva ushloi kedin. What are you worried about? The following. You went ahead and you have a shtar halva. The halva took place on June 2nd, but it was written on June 1st. So people will go ahead and say, you know, when the actual loan took place on June 1st. The loiva then goes ahead, sells his property, and then they come after he defaults, and they'll say there's a lien on his property. In fact, there was no lien on his property. He sold it before the actual transaction took place on the 2nd. That's called a get mukdim. And therefore, people will go to his people who purchased his property and take it away, shaloi kedin. That's called a get mukdim. And that, says Reb Shimon, exists in the realm of money. When the get, meaning the shtar, is going to be usually govaina, to go ahead and collect something. But a get is not a shtar goyvaina. A get is a shtar of krisus. It's not a get to collect an object. So therefore, it says Rabbi Shimon. Therefore, there's nothing to worry about if the get is predated, since you won't come to a takala that people will go ahead and schlep away property shaloi kedin. Right? That's the thrust over here. Chutz mikitei nashim, the lav legavayna says Rashi avida. The Gemara farishla, and the Gemara we're going to explain it too. Okay, guys. So let's go. What do we have? A get muktim. It was written one day and signed on another day, and it doesn't have a zman in the get. You may come to go ahead, according to Rashi, and collect shaloi kedin. Says the Itmar, says the Gemara. If they ma tiknu zman begitin, what's the reason they were matakin a zman begitin? After all, since the purpose of the shtar, you're not going to use a get to collect anything. You're not worried about going ahead and having a lien on a property, a false lien, because why? The transaction took place after the actual gerushin. You're not going to use it as wide as, in other words, Rav Shimon makes a lot of sense. If the whole reason the shtar muktim is that you shouldn't come to go ahead and collect from the people who purchased property, right, when there wasn't a lien, and then you're going to say, well, there was a lien because there was no zman. What are you worried about a get? There is no lien, there is no zman, and you're not going to collect anything. So why do you need a zman? The question really is, loy techachamim, why do you need a zman beget? Again, it's not, we understand why you need by a halva, by a matana, by a mecher. We understand why you need a zman. You need to protect the lekuches, the ones who bought the land from the loiva or the makabel. You need to go ahead and protect them. So I have to know exactly when the transaction took place. Masha'en came over here. Why do I have to know exactly when the transaction took place? Lekuches, you don't have to worry about, since it's not legavaina to collect anything. That's the Gemara's kasha. After the Gemara, it's a machloikis between Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish. Two very, very famous reasons.
Rabbi,
yes.
If the chasima is the ikar, why can't we just go basar the chasima? Who cares when the chasima?
I don't know if chasima is the ikar. Really, we paskin edim is sirakarti. So really, the kasha over here, the Gemara is going to get into it. Shalom is why just like after the Masira. Your question is, look when it was given over. Why cares about right? The Gemara will discuss it tomorrow. Excellent. The questions are on the Masira, but your question is the same question. Excellent. Now, so Itmar, if they ma tiknu zman begin, why would a chachamim mitaken zman begin? If you're not going to collect anything, what's the reason? So Rabbi Yochanan says the following: Mishum basa chaysay. Guys, outside. Amir marries his niece. Good. You don't have his mom beget. He finds out that his niece was mizaneh. Now he's going to divorce her anyway, but he doesn't want her to die. So what's he going to do? He's going to say, "Oh, she was divorced already." In other words, she was mizaneh in April. The get was given in May, but if there's no, and she really was. There's no March. She was divorced in March. So therefore, says Rabbi Yochanan, even though it's Lavla Gavaina, you need a Zman to protect that what? A man should not go ahead and protect his relative if he marries his relative. He's going to divorce her, for sure. But nonetheless, he'll have Rachmanis on her, that she shouldn't be killed. Therefore, I need to get to ensure that won't take place. That's the famous teretz of Rabbi Yochanan. If he's married to his niece. Reish Lakish Amar, Mishum Peiris. Okay, we know from Masechta Ksubis, that a man, if a woman brings a property into marriage, there can be two properties, Nichsei Tzayin Barzil or Nichsei Miloig. Let's discuss the Nichsei Miloig, where she owns the property and he gets the payers. Good. At some point in time, if he divorces her, he loses the rights to that payers. Good. So what? If you don't have a Zman, what might happen? Let's see Rashi. If you don't have a Zman, here's the payers. Says Rashi, Mishum Peiris, Shemizmana get ve'elech, from the date of the get and onwards, im yimchoy habal bepeiris nichsei miloig, if he would go ahead and sell them, shalah, nichsei miloig shalah, tigamim, she should be able to collect them, because as soon as he put his man in the get to divorce her, right, then for all intents and purposes, he should not have a right to the nichsei miloig. And if he does no zman, he'll sell and he'll sell. And when she's toivei him to din, her hand will be on the bottom. Kaidim Gerushin Machati. I sold them before Gerushin. So you're worried about Paris. In other words, since from the time of Gerushin, he loses his right to go ahead and eat Paris. If there's no Zman, he'll be able to have this right of selling him, and he'll say, listen, when I sold him, we were married. So by putting a Zman in the get, we're giving the cutoff point and saying, no, anything afterwards, if you sell, she can collect them because it wasn't yours to sell. It wasn't yours to sell. Now we're going to see in the Gemara, this goes after the Chasima or the Ksiva. Okay, so we have Machlaikas. Let's go through the Machlaikas again. The Gemara wants to know, why do you need mean Zman beget? The lumdis behind it, since it's not for the purpose of collection, what's the reason? Says Rabbi Yochanan, it's an aroyistic reason. It's not payment. It's not a monetary point. It's an aroyistic point. It's a capital punishment point. You're worried about what? A woman getting off the hook. When she was mizana, and during her marriage, if the get doesn't have a zman on it, the husband who will have rachmanis on his basachoso, his relative, will say she was divorced before, and there's no zman to tell me not. Like Rav Shimon, no, it's a kasha. The Gemara's kasha is going to ask, like Rav Shimon, why is it kosher? There's no svara to be machshel later. Basachoso, Rav Shimon, there's no reason. How can he say it's kosher? It's like, boom. I mean, there's nothing to talk about. And the Gemara is going to answer in Nachnami. Rabbi Yochanan said it's pshat of basachoisoi only in the Chachamim, not in Rav Shimon, as we're going to see. Reish Lakish suggests the reason is Paris. The husband, when he times to divorce his wife, right, he loses his right to sell the Paris. If there's no zman in the get, he can go ahead and sell it nonstop. She'll come and want to collect from the people he sold it to, and he'll say, 1 second, I sold it before we were divorced. But now that you have a zman, he won't be able to say that. Those are the two reasons. The Gemara now will go ahead and figure out why one doesn't like the other's pshat. Says the Gemara. Reish Lakish, who holds as Paris, my time Rabbi Yochanan. What did he not like about Rabbi Yochanan? Amid Beis. Amalach, he'll tell you, it's the nus loy shchicha. What are you worried about? Basa chaysai? It's nus loy shchicha. Okay? We'll get back to this in a second. Rabbi Yochanan Amar, my time Rabbi Yochanan, my time Reish Lakish. Why does Rabbi Yochanan who says about Sachaisai, what did he like about Paris? Ksavar yesh lebal Paris at Shas Nesina. You're right. In other words, even if you write the Zman in the get, that's not when he loses his right. He loses his right from the time you give the get, not from the time that you wrote the get. So there's no purpose for Zman for Paris. Because let's say it was dated in April, and he gave the get in June. All the Paris that he ate from April to June is his. She can't finally you divorce me in April because the get was only given in June. So therefore, that can't be the reason. The reason must be Basachosai. So again, Reish Lakish doesn't like Rabbi Yochanan because Znus L'Shticha, and Rabbi Yochanan doesn't like Reish Lakish because the Zman is not the criteria for selling Paris. It's what? It's the Nesina. Now, guys, let's go back to the first parak in Masechta Ksubis. A basula gets married when? On Monday. Gets married on a Sunday. On Wednesday. She gets married on a Wednesday, right? Shemesh l'tainis basulim. Right? She'll come to Bezdin. Now, why is she coming to Bezdin? Because what's he going to taina? During the Erisin period, she was mizana. So how can you tell me that's nus's leishchicha when we have a whole sugya arucha, the whole first parak of the beginning sugya Masechta Ksubis is predicated upon the concept that what Shema Tizna, maybe she was mizana. Maybe she was mizana. That's Taisus, a famous kasha. You hear the kasha? You don't hear the kasha, Baruch.
Guys, you have a whole parak of Ben Sorah Mor also.
What? Okay, Ben Sorah, but there never was a Ben Sorah Mora. But again, we never said it's l'shliach. We said that this is the halacha. This is the halacha. You didn't have an Amoira giving the teretz that Ben Sorah Mora is l'shliach, right? We never had you're telling me the reason why is because there's nus. Says Reish Lakish, I don't believe that's the reason. Says Reish Lakish, I don't believe that's the reason. I don't believe that's the reason. Now, but we see it. We do have to worry about nus. So this kash has got so many terutzim. Let's leave Taisus, and I'll read to you a few terutzim from the Masifta gives a whole list of terutzim over here. It's amazing how many terutzim to this kasha. Okay, so let's see Taisus inside. Znus leishchicha, pirish, znus be'edim ubasra leishchiach. You know when he says it doesn't mean the act of znus is not shayach. The act of znus is very shayach. You know what's not shayach, guys? You know what's not shayach? That you should have edim asra to kill her. Again, why is the husband going to be chas al basa chaysai on his niece? Because he doesn't want her to die. The only way she's dying is what? With edim and asra. Said Reish Lakish, to have edim asra is not shtiach, it's not common, it's not found. That can't be the reason, therefore it's man. It must be Paris. Not pshat, the act of znus is not shayach. The act of znus is gan shayach. The act of znus ve'edim asra is not shayach. That's Taisus' teretz. That's Taisus' teretz. Now, there's a bunch of other terutzim. I can't tell you how many terutzim to this kasha. Places a rush, for example. Znus b'vasa chaysai eina davar shchiach. The niece should have znus. It's not shchiach. One teretz. Znus be'isha nesua eina davar shchiach. Kimus shebala meshamra. If she's a married woman, it's not shchiach. The husband's going to watch out for her. Masha'en came. What we were speaking about in Masechta Ksubis, we're speaking about this man Erison, where she was just engaged, married, but not living together. Since he wasn't living together, it's shayach znus over there. So the answer to the kasha, the difference in the sugya in Ksubis and the sugya here in Gitin, here we're speaking about an asua, there we're speaking about an arusa. By an asua, where the husband can watch her, it's not shayach what, it's not shchiach znus. Mashenkin over there, where we were speaking about before, this nus took place before this suin, when they weren't living together, so he could watch her. Therefore, what it would be gan shaya. Places teretz is nus with edim asra. Okay, we'll stop it over there. Okay, good. So now, continues the Gemara. So again, Reish Lakish didn't like because Reichana didn't like. Why? Because this man is not a player when it comes to Paris. Now Bishlein on the Reish Lakish, who says the reason else Paris, Mishum Hachi Kamachsha, Rav Shimon. Rav Shimon is Machsha because Rav Shimon says the following, guys: as soon as he makes up his mind to divorce her, that the get is written, she's divorced. Meaning, in Paris, he loses his right to Paris. You don't need a zman. As soon as the get is written, in other words, since he went ahead and has in mind to divorce her, since he has what in mind to divorce her, he loses his right to Paris. So you don't need zman to go ahead and create that. As soon as the ksiva was done, it's finished. So as long as that he loses that right, and that's why Rav Shimon says. Therefore, Rav Shimon says it's kasha. Rashi mishum hachi machsher Rav Shimon the get muktim. That's why Rav Shimon is makdish what with a get that was predated. Kedam l'kaman. So Rav Shimon kimishnasav ein legarsha shuv ein leParis. Hilkach im isa lemitraf lekuchis the Paris miyam ksiva shapa avda. The time of the rabban l'kamei mefarish. In other words, you have a get over here. What are you worried about? You're worried about that she's going to go ahead and collect from the lekuchish Gitin because he's going to say they were divorced. She has the right to collect because as soon as it was written, therefore he says get the muktin that was predated, whatever the date you put in the get, since the get was written and was dated that time, from that time on when he lost the right to Paris, and therefore the wife could go ahead and collect from there. So like Rav Shimon, we have a like Reish Lakish, we have an explanation between the machlokes between the Chachamim and Rav Shimon. Like the Chachamim, he loses his rights to Paris at the time what the get was given over. The get was given over. Anything before then, anything according to the Chachamim. According to Chachamim, you're worried that she's going to take away from the Kuchas Shalai Kedin, because saying that he's going to say that she's going to go and want to collect. And she would have a right to collect because he's going to taina he's going to taina that they weren't divorced yet, and therefore you need a zman to say they were divorced. and therefore that's the reason for the chacham. You need a zman to say the divorce. Says the Reb Shimon, you don't even need a zman. The fact that the get is written, from the time it's written, they're going to be divorced, and therefore it's kasha. A get muktim would be kasha. That's the way Reish Lakish would explain the Gemara. El Rabbi Yochanan, who says the reason? Al spasa chaysoy ma time of Reb Shimon the machshir. What's the reason Reb Shimon would hold this kasha? Says Rashi, my time of Reb Shimon the machshir. Hazimnin disanoi ba'oisa yoim. She remembers that day that the get was written. She had snus. V'idena eishesish before it was given. The cholzman shlei nechtam, as long as it wasn't signed, leinitin law. It's not given to her. Ukeshemamidim al senusa, and when they testify on snus, matzia gita, she'll bring out the get. The cost of boy may oisa yoim. Boy meris gerusha. You see, I was gerusha. In fact, she wasn't a gerusha yet. So what? In other words, how could Rabbi Yochanan explain Reb Shimon that it should be kosher? Bishlei malay Reish Lakish, that he loses rights to Paris in the time the get is written. I can understand why Reb Shimon says the get muktim is kosher, because again, you have nothing to worry about. But if the reason for Reb Shimon is basa chaysai, how could it be kosher? It makes no sense. She's not divorced until the get is what is signed and given. And you have no zman to tell me that anything earlier. What's to stop the husband from having rachmanas on her? And why would Rav Shimon say it's kosher? Says the Gemara, you're right. It's such a powerful question. So, Rabbi Yochanan, I'll leave it to Rav Shimon like kamina. When did I say my din of basachoso? I didn't say it according to Rav Shimon. Rav Shimon's got to be als Paris. Ki kamina, I'll leave it to Rabbanan. Who did I say my din to? I said it according to the Rabbanan. I said my din only according what? To the Rabbanan. I did not say it according to Rav Shimon. Okay, so we have machloikas, that's the Schaz Riba. Machloikas between Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish as to the reason why you need a zman beget. Again, what's the shaila? Since the get is lavlika vaina, you're not going to use it as a means of collecting. So you would know when the lien on the property is, that when the sale took place before the transaction or after this interaction. So since it's not used to collecting, why would you need a zman? Like Rabbi Yochanan, you would need a zman because perhaps he would have rachmanas on basa chaysai. Like Rav Shimon, he agrees als Paris. Like Reish Lakish, it's because of Paris. Like Reish Lakish, it's because of Paris that he should not be able to go ahead and sell it and then come ahead and say, "Well, I sold it before I divorced her, right?" And in fact, he sold it after he divorced her. Like Rav Shimon, why is it kosher? Because Einachinami, if she would collect, she has every right to collect because whenever he sold it from the time of the kesiva, it's considered done. That's what it's so far. Okay, says the Gemara. Now, Bishlema, like Rabbi Yochanan, Haina de'ika bein Reb Shimon l'Rabbanan. You have such a tremendous difference in the Shimon and Rabbanan. Reb Shimon is als Paris, the Rabbanan is al Basal Choso. El Reish Lakish, my ika bein Reb Shimon l'Rabbanan. What's the difference, guys? Halachically, what's the nafkamina between the two? If both Reb Shimon and the Chacham hold it in his Paris, why do you need this man beget? In other words, like the Chachamim, what's wrong? Because we understand Reb Shimon very well. As soon as it's written, you're gone, right? So why would the Chacham disagree with that? Says the Gemara, Peri the Mishas Ksiva Vachas Chasima Ikebinayu. The difference between it is any Paris that he took from the time of the Kasiva to the time of the Chasima. Guys, let's theorize. Loit Reb Shimon, he didn't have any right B'Shas Kasiva. Loit the Chachamim, he had every right till the time of the Chasima. Therefore, that would be the difference. Like Rav Shimon, the woman will be able to collect it. Like the Chachamim, the woman would not be able to collect it because he had every right to sell it up, because he had right to the Nichsim Iloig up to the Chasima or the Nesina of the get. Right? Read the Gemara. So now it comes out like this, guys. It comes out that you're telling me that Rabbi Yochanan says, if you look at line number three lines down, Yesh labal Paris at Shas Nesina. Rabbi Yochanan says you have Paris up to the time of Nesina, right? And therefore he's not what if he would sell it beforehand, he had every right to. Good. And late Reish Lakish, you go with the time of the Kesiva, and therefore he did not have a right to. Good. So Fred the Gemara of Ifka Shamin Alhu, we heard the opposite. The Itmar Me'emasai might see in the Paris. When do you go ahead and he cannot sell Paris anymore? Rabbi Yochanan Amar Mishas Ksiva. But 1 second, you just told me Rabbi Yochanan says Mishas Nesina, and Reish Lakish Amar Mishas Nesina. 1 second, you just told me Reish Lakish b'shas ksiva. Says Gemara ipach einach nami, switch it around. Switch it around. That's the thing. You have to switch it around. Good. Says the Gemara. Let's finish up a little bit. We saw in the first parak, guys. Let's go back to Daf. What was it? Not that long ago. Go back to Daf Gimel Amid Beis. Gimel Amid Beis. The Gemara here was discussing who's the Tana that needs Ksiva Lishma and Chasima Lishma. We said, like Rabbi, you only need Chasima. Like Rabbi Laza, you only need Ksiva Lishma. And we want to say that's only Deraisa, but Derabanan you would need. And the Gemara says the following: Gimel Gitin Psulim, right in the middle of the page, Gimel Amid Beis. Gimel Gitin Psulim, the Imnisa Savlat Kasha, meaning Deraisa, it's a good get. And therefore, the second marriage, any child born from the second marriage will be a Kasha, not a Mamza. So this is the raya that you don't need Eidim at all. Here's the case when you need Yesh Lav Eidim ve'ein b'izman. Yesh Lav Eidim ve'ein b'izman. So what do you see, guys? You don't need Zman. Yesh Lav Eidim ve'ein b'izman, correct? So that's the Gemara's kasha over here. Fred the Gemara by us. Fred the Gemara by us. Yeah. Fred the Gemara. Amalei Abayil Rav Yosef, Shloisha Gitin, Shepsulim, the Imnisas Lavat Kosher. And now one of them was what? You know, this man. Mahoil Chachomim B'Takanta. If they were Metakin Zman because of Basachoisai or Mishim Peris, what did they accomplish if she could get married with the get anyway? Right, guys, you hear the kasha. Midaraisa, it's a good get. The Chachomim made a Zman. Mishim Basachoisai, Mishim Peris. If you're telling me it's a good get, so what did they accomplish? And for the Gemara, Hani, they accomplished the lechatchila loitinase. With a get without zman, lechatchila you shouldn't get married, right? Lechatchila you shouldn't get married, and therefore, since they said lechatchila, the Sefer Dayanim won't write a get without a zman. In other words, that's what they accomplished. They accomplished since lechatchila you can't get married. They accomplished that what the Sefer, the Dayanim, they're malumid, they're not going to write a get without zman. If such an animal does exist, einachinami, it's a good get. But since they were attacking it, lechatchila, no one's going to go ahead and write it that way. Now, Feg Abayit Rabbi Yosef, new kasha, Geiza, if the guy goes ahead, the Baal cuts out the Zman D-Day, he cuts out the right, the Yov Nehela, and he gives her the get. Mai, is the get kosher b'di'evet? So Amalei, right? The Ramayla Chashina. Einachinami will be kosher b'di'evet because you don't need a Zman. But we're not chayish or aramoi. Kosev boy shvua. Again, you wrote there, in what year of the Shemitah cycle is it? What year of the Shemitah cycle is it? Or the Yovel cycle? Which 7 years of Yovel? And doesn't write the year. Shana, you wrote the year, and you didn't write the Chodesh. Or Shabbos, you wrote the day of the week. Mai. In all these, if you're missing the Shvuah, if you're missing the Shana, if you're missing the Chodesh, you're missing the day of the week, what's the din? So Amalei Rav Yosef said the get is kasha, lechatchila, since you wrote his man. Even the wrote his man, that right? You're able to write lechatchila as man shel shmita, and therefore you would go ahead. In other words, you could say, 1 second, which shmita cycle? So maybe you're going to say it's the previous shmita cycle. I gave the get in the previous Shemitah cycle, and now she was divorced. So you can accomplish. What did you accomplish? So Ahani, the Shua the Kamei, that the one before, if she was Mizana for Shemitah, she's not able. You won't be able to go ahead and be Mechapa. That's what. So if you wrote it in the second Shemitah cycle, right? She wouldn't be able to. Excuse me, the first one wouldn't be able to in the. If she was mizana before the Shemitah of this one, right? He was wrote in the second one, she would be guilty. She would be guilty. And if he sells his Paris after the Shemitah, then what? You'll be able to take it away, the fruit from the second buyer. If you don't say that Takona helped for these manim, but right? Yuma gufa miyadin and imitzafin epanya, the day itself. Morning or afternoon. In other words, when was she divorced? We don't write shoyz beget. Was she divorced in the morning, divorced in the afternoon? Right? He just writes the day. Right? It could be he divorced her in the morning and he sold Paris in the evening. Ella, what do you have to say? The Yuma de Kama, it helps for the previous day. The Yuma de Bas, it helps for the previous day, Le'inyan Snus. The Yuma de Basre, it helps in the latter day for while Le'inyan Paris. So Chanami Ahani Lishvur the Kame, the get will help that she was Mizana beforehand, before the Shemitah cycle. In other words, before she was divorced. Well, the Shvur the Basre, Le'inyan Paris, that the woman would be able to go ahead and take it away from the kuchos, the Paris that he sold. Okay, everyone has a great Shabbos. Thank you for listening. There's a Shemaitza Shabbos. I don't know the time yet. We'll see.